Hey, welcome to this video. What we are going to do is talk about the Humankind End Conditions patch and analyze some of the changes that were made as a part of that patch. Now, some of the bigger changes you can see, well, one of the changes you can see here, it is that you can turn on and off end conditions. So for example, a turn limit reached, vassalized, endgame technologies being researched. I quite frequently win with this one, or end the game with this one. You don't necessarily win the game by doing something, you win based on fame. Eliminating all the empires, it's interesting that you can turn that off. It's going to be a very, very lonely game if you turn this off and you've conquered all the empires and then what? There's nobody else. Mars conquered. I've never been able to do this pollution threshold one. Air limit reached. Okay. Looks like you can just sort of turn off a lot of things here and just pick and choose. The other big change that's probably far more impactful than these end conditions is all of the military balancing that was done. Rather than look at sort of this high level view, we're going to look at the low level view here on military balancing. The other thing to note here is that they changed a little bit about the expensive districts balancing. So base districts now scale depending on how many districts of that type are present. So it doesn't specify whether it's within that city or within the empire, but I believe that before it was kind of scaling on the overall number, and other districts scale based on the percentage of total district amount. This doesn't make sense to me by what they're saying here. Like the base districts, but in other districts, I guess maybe these other districts are the emblematic districts? I don't know. This doesn't make sense. Be good to maybe clarify this and write it in a way that maybe gives some examples or something like that. Okay, the big changes are related to military balancing. So the Ganjal base strength was significantly reduced. I don't remember what the Ganjal are. They did mention the warrior elephants or the combat elephants or something like that, and it's around this area. Maybe it's those ones, but anyway, they were nerfed. The dragon was nerfed as well. The Cossacks was increased. Now, one of the good changes here is that it's not only that they made lots of things less powerful, they also made lots of other things more powerful. And that was something that was lacking, I think, in a big way in the previous patches. Oh, look at that. Kama siege elephants. Maybe that's what I was thinking about. But anyway, I'm happy that, you know, the balancing isn't just sort of one directional. Turkish SOM price set to tier 1. I don't know what the SOM is. Maybe that's the missile. Looks like it was the missile, but anyway. The poison strengthening is actually a big change. It used to be that there's one of the ranged, maybe the Egyptians? No. Anyway, one of the industry picks that you can take instead of the Hunnic hordes. So I think it's in the second era. You used to not be able to defend very well with those poison attacks. Like it had some impact, but didn't really have that much of an impact. But strengthening this poison so that the movement is now 2 is a big change, and it's going to help you defend against sort of mounted units in a big way. So I think that's good to see. And yeah, you can see that Javelin Thrower bonus effect was buffed. Didn't say where the javelins used to be, but they buffed them as well. Javelin Throws and Javelineers to 26. I don't know what the difference might be. One of these is an emblematic unit, not sure. War Elephant was slightly nerfed. Okay, so it's not the War Elephant. But that's not a big change. There are way more important aspects than one combat strength to a unit, so I wouldn't worry too much about this. Gisati was slightly buffed, Jerry Warriors slightly buffed, the Impy were buffed, okay, and they buffed the Unstoppable ability, so I think that's good to see. Take it, Janus Focus Fire bonus, okay. Reduced Vanguard combat strength, wow, that's a big reduction. Now this is impactful, this 5 point, as well as they came as Siege Elephants. These are massive nerfs. So, gotta watch out for that. Taking 5 combat strength out of something is basically like the rear attack bonus is 4 combat strength. So, yeah. But I think these two were very, very strong from memory. So that's why they did it. The other thing that they did here, and this is something that I've noticed in Humankind, is that the upkeep is actually really high for older units, and it means it limits the sort of army size that you can really have, and the amount of gold that you have to maintain if you have a decent army. So they have reduced the upkeep across the board. All these different tiers presumably are sort of, tier 1 units. Presumably the earlier tier here stuff didn't have any. I'm not sure, but anyway, these are like different versions of tiers, and they've reduced all of those upkeep costs, which is good. Warrior upkeep was reduced to tier 1, and this is a big change as well. The warrior industry cost to 45 from 90. So that makes a big difference. Maybe this helps with countering the sort of scout attack. The scout spam. What you can do in the game is that you stay in the early game for longer to get like 20 scout units before advancing to the next era, and then you just sort of throw all your units at the enemy. But I'm not sure if this is going to change it in a big way, because I don't remember going up against warriors when I followed that kind of strategy. But maybe that helps a little bit as well. Oh wow, pro-choice. This change is big for the Mycenaeans. This is a massive buff. Look at this, 45 from 180. The pro-choice were never that good because of how expensive they were. So that just made the Mycenaeans. I'm pretty sure the pro-choice are the Mycenaeans. Let's check for just a minute. Yeah, Mycenaeans. And the Mycenaeans are war focused, so they just buffed the Mycenaeans much more than they used to be. They already were okay. They weren't like top tier, but I think this is a good change. Royal Guardsmen. Let's see. Who are these guys? Attack of Fanboy. Okay. Royal Guards. Humankind. It doesn't say. I can't be bothered to look it up. Anyway, they made reduced the cost, industry cost as well. Scout Cavalry upkeep increased and made more expensive. So more expensive than the warriors, which is an interesting change. I don't know. I think that scouts should probably be cheaper than warriors, but I don't know. I mean, you're not supposed to have like a huge number of them, and this is how they maybe address that problem. Reduce the chariot strategic cost from 2 copper to 1 copper. So they rebalanced the strategic resource requirement for the chariot from copper to horses. I mean, I don't know if that's a big difference. It changes what you need to have to be able to use the unit, but Chariot Archer, Yeah, and they did the same for the Chariot Archer. I mean, that's a big change that they introduced 1 copper being required for the Chariot Archer, right? Because it used to be that you only needed horses. Now you need both horses and copper. So, Noble Chariot, War Chariot increased to 2 horses. Interesting. This is a big change as well. The Swordsman Strategy costs to 0 iron from 1 iron. One of the problems that you can run into if you are sort of a defensive civ, if you're not trying to attack the enemy, or even if you are trying to attack the enemy, is that you don't find iron. But at the same time, that kind of encourages you to go to war with the enemy who might have iron earlier than you otherwise might. But you can also, yeah, it's like it reduces the advantage that a empire has maybe with a lot of land, because they're more likely to have iron, and you're still more vulnerable to maybe smaller empires that can still build up some swordsmen. So I think this is probably sort of an okay change, because it's, you know, early in the game, people are still finding their footing, so it's probably okay not to require iron for a really, really important unit that you might need for offense as well as defense. So, yeah. Celts can't build whatever. Warriors can be upgraded in the Gethati. Yeah, okay. I think that's probably a good change. The Gothic Cavalry was kind of rebalanced as well. War Elephants. Okay, they removed 1 copper, but then added a iron. Interesting. Patrolling yards earlier to standing army. Swordsman fell like axes. Okay. I think, yeah, these are the Romans. It still looks like they require iron, but you can still build swordsmen. I think that's good. Any buff to some of the military cultures early on in the game is probably good at this point, because they are some of the more weaker ones. Like, you wouldn't pick the Romans if you're trying to attack people, you pick the Huns, right? To tier 1 from tier 1. Tier 2. Interesting that the crossbows were tier 1. Wow. The crossbows were never very good, so I don't know why this was changed. The problem with crossbowmen is that they need clear line of sight to be able to shoot, so you have to deploy them sort of on the front lines, or you have to put them in harm's way unless you're able to kill that unit that's in front of you, right? At least offensively. So the crossbows, and then you get attacked and your crossbowmen are really weak and they just die, right? So the crossbowmen were really like a defensive unit that you can deploy into a city. That's a pretty rare use case, and they also weren't that powerful for that use case either. I mean, it's good to have them. Like, if you have just crossbowmen along, like, filling up all the tiles in your city defensively, it's probably pretty hard to capture. But at the same time, crossbowmen are really weak to being attacked by close quarter combat units. So anyway, okay. Range units were never that strong in Humankind. Like, if I can take a good melee unit, I probably would do that over that anyway. Longbows also looks like they reduced that. Longbows might actually be better than crossbows, because presumably they can still shoot over enemies. Oh, look at this. Great swords. That's good. Varangian Guard. I don't know what this one is. Presumably one of the great swordsman replacement. Increase the upkeep cost for the Capterian Knights to end Tectonic Knights, as well as the industry cost. Interesting. Knights were already really expensive, so I don't know, interesting change. Harass strength cost to 2 horses. That's probably 3 horses is a lot. Samurai upkeep cost 2 tier 1. Okay. I don't know where these are. Strategic musketeer. Why don't I have like an iron strategic cost? Weird. Course cost 0 iron for 1 iron. Okay. Maybe because of their guns. Mortar strategic cost 2 1 iron. Okay. Move the company. That's probably good. The mortars were also never that strong. The good part of the mortars is that you could have them sort of back and they can still fire pretty far forward, but they don't do an awful lot of damage. Like, even if you have 5 or 6 mortars and you're trying to bombard like a city or something like that, like, you're not going to get very much done even with 5 or 6 mortars. You need a lot of them. I haven't sort of used them in like open field combat yet. Maybe they're better there. Units get a lot of defensive bonuses when they're in the city. Howitzers upgrade into gunships, good. No longer upgrade to cannons, but straight to siege artillery. Okay. Reduced rocket cart. Oh. Okay, I don't remember the rocket cart. Interesting. Winged hussars. Reduced strategic cost upkeep. Okay. Increased upkeep. And increased. Wow. They like add a lot of extra strength. Man of war, strategic cost. Okay, lots and lots of changes. Combat strength, reduction. Late game cavalry units now give to mechanized infantry. Okay. Line infantry industry costs. Line infantry was never that good. Plus, at that point in the game, if you're playing the AI, you're already like winning. Actually, I don't know if they are good or bad, but at that point it just never mattered to me anymore. Maybe in multiplayer it's probably different. You might be sort of locked in. Okay, I'm not going to recognize very many of these because I haven't used very many of them. Commando industry cost, reduction and upkeep. I don't understand how the commando... Presumably they're talking about this part of the tier, right? Like tier 4, they didn't change. Like a unit is still going to be tier 6, but maybe they moved them between the 6-1 and 6-2 tiers. Because presumably these tiers are related to the era that the units unlock in. Okay. Anti-air gun. Again, like at this point in the game, if you're playing the AI, you've probably won already. So I've never sort of needed these things in a big way, so I don't know how to analyze them. I don't have much experience with like them being... Like whenever I unlocked the helicopter gunship, like I was still getting shot at by probably archer units or some really weak units by the AI. So I like changing it from... to 7,400 from 3,700 doesn't make a big difference. I mean, it reduces the number that you can get here, but anyway. Important fixes. Okay, show DDoS button. That's probably good. Fix an issue where desync can occur after an event. Okay, good. Other issues. Fix redeem action. Fix an issue where community challenge. Chapter 2. I think that's probably the... the whatever event chain that they just unlocked. Fix an issue where the avatar change from patch 3 to patch 4. I don't even know what that means. Debug text, Project Mercury, some changes to the map editor. So overall, I think good. It's good to see that they're not just nerfing powerful units, but increasing the strength of other units to be stronger. So that's really good to see. A little bit different from the past, where they were mainly focused on nerfing the really strong stuff rather than making... there are 2 ways that you can sort of balance the game, right? Like you can either take things that are really strong, make them weaker, so that it sort of fits in with all the other things, or you can take things that are weak and make them stronger, right? So you sort of bring them up to the level of strength that the other things have, and which one is appropriate just sort of depends on the kind of broader context. So it's not always a good answer, but I usually prefer, I would be on the side of, or tend to go in the direction of making sort of some of the weaker things more strong, because taking something strong away from people, unless it was just way too strong, sort of game breaking, kind of is disappointing. And you used to have something that's really good and now it's not very good anymore, so that's not a good feeling. But unlocking like a new path for people to do something that they were previously unable to do because it just wasn't good enough, like that's a really positive change for a game, right? Because you have a larger variety of things to choose from. You make more things viable as options to go for. Maybe it's more cultures that are actually viable now, and so on. So yeah, I think on balance it's probably going in the right direction. Would love to see more of these sort of weak things being fixed up. Some of the things that they didn't change is probably the Phoenicians are still pretty weak in this. Like they have boosted the strength of some of the military cultures, especially the Mycenaeans. And in the Mycenaeonic era, is that something that you say? Anyway, at that point it matters. So I think it's really good to see. Maybe what we'll do when we play Humankind next, we'll pick the Mycenaeans and just see how things have changed. But yeah, for now we'll leave it at that. So thanks for watching, and until next time, bye.